Good morning and welcome to the Public Service Commission. I hope all had a good holiday and ready to get back to work. Today is January 8, 2025. It is approximately 10 a.m. First, all commissioners are present in the hearing room. We are here today concerning docket number 2024-264E, application of South Carolina Public Service Authority for Certificate of Environmental Compatibility and Public Convenience and necessity for the construction and operation of a steam turbine generator and associated facilities as part of the combined cycle conversion project of its Rainey generating station near Ivor, South Carolina. I would ask Ms. Wessinger-Hill to read anything else we needed about the docket.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to everyone who's joining the commission today. As the chairman mentioned, this is a proceeding in docket number 2024-264E. The docket does concern the application filed on September 16, 2024 by the South Carolina Public Service Authority, which is also known as Santee Cooper. As the chairman mentioned, Santee Cooper is seeking from the commission a certificate in order to continue with its project at its Rainey generating station near Ivor, South Carolina. The application of Santee Cooper is filed in accordance with the requirements of the South Carolina Utility Facility Siting and Environmental Protection Act found in Chapter 33 of Title 58 of the South Carolina Code of Laws. As part of the schedule today, the clerk's office scheduled the hearing for today, January the 8th. It was noticed by the clerk as well as noticed and by publication of the party Santee Cooper in the newspapers of general circulation. This hearing is resuming today at 10 a.m. and shall continue until concluded or otherwise ordered by the chair. Mr. Chairman and other members of the commission, this docket is in order.
Thank you, Ms. Wessinger-Hill. Would the party's attorneys now please introduce themselves, beginning with Santee Cooper.
Good morning, Chairman Powers, Commissioners. My name is Stephen Pelcher. I'm an attorney here for Santee Cooper. With me from Santee Cooper is Megan Driggers. She's back there temporarily. And I'm going to ask Ashley Cooper to introduce the Baker Donaldson members of our legal team.
Good morning, Chairman Powers, members of the commission. I'm Ashley Cooper with Baker Donaldson Law Firm, and joining me are Matt Gissendanner and Alex Brazil, also with Baker Donaldson Law Firm.
Thank you very much. ORS.
Good morning, Chair Powers, Vice Chair Williams, and members of the commission, and a happy new year. Joshua Alston on behalf of ORS, and with me today I've got Claire Binge.
Thank you very much. There are interveners by statute which are not participating in today's hearing, which would be the South Carolina Department of Environmental Services, South Carolina Department of Natural Resources, and South Carolina Department of Parks, Recreation, and Tourism. Before we begin with any testimony, are there any matters we need to discuss or any presentations?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. Santee Cooper has prepared a very brief opening statement in the form of a video. It's not been entered into evidence, but Santee Cooper prepared it to provide you all with an overview of the current facility, to show you the expansion and what's planned. And we think that it'll provide you added insight and context into this project and what we're putting before you. We hope that will make the question answer period more meaningful and provide you with a sense of why we believe this is a common sense way to acquire much needed capacity in a timely fashion. The last thing I'll say is when we provide this video, there's a brief narrative that goes with it, but it's not intended to be in sync with the actual pictures you're seeing. So there may be a point where it talks about a tower and you may see something that does not look like a tower. So,
okay. No popcorn?
Yeah, yes. Well, it's going to be so brief, Mr. Chairman, we didn't bring popcorn. That's the only reason.
Okay. Is any objection from ORS as to that presentation?
Chair Powers, this video was provided to ORS by Santee Cooper previously. We've reviewed it. Understanding it's a demonstrative, we have no objection.
Okay. Thank you very much. Please proceed.
The generating station is a natural gas-fired combined cycle power plant near Ivor, South Carolina in Anderson County. The station is situated on a 200-acre site with only 80 of those acres cleared and actively used for the facility. The Rainey site's location was selected due to its proximity to the Transco gas pipeline and water sources, and to mitigate impacts on wetlands and limit land disturbance and any visual impacts. There are 2 miles of water pipeline serving the facility, 2 miles of gas pipeline, and 30 miles of electrical transmission lines. Initial construction of Rainey began in 2000. Commercial operation of the first units began in 2002, with other units beginning commercial operation in 2004. The Rainey generating station consists of a 2x1 combined cycle unit and 5 simple cycle combustion turbines with 977 megawatts of capacity. While Unit 1 was constructed as a combined cycle unit, Unit 2, consisting of turbines 2A and 2B, is a simple cycle, but designed and constructed to accommodate a future conversion to combined cycle operation. Santee Cooper plans to expand the generation output and capacity of Rainey Generating Station by converting Units 2A and 2B to combined cycle operation, also called the project. Santee Cooper identified the proposed conversion project as a means to serve an increased electrical demand from its wholesale and retail customers with minimal environmental impact. Converting a unit to an existing location will not impact land use, cultural resources, or existing ecology, vegetation, and wildlife. Converting to a combined cycle operation maximizes generation efficiency and minimizes fuel usage. The combined cycle will be able to produce approximately 50% more energy with the same amount of natural gas, supporting the increased demand of the combined system. Once completed, the overall arrangement for Unit 2 will be a multi-shaft 2XL combined cycle. The total combined cycle capacity for these units will be approximately 538 megawatts in the winter net dependency capacity. These combined cycle units will be fired using natural gas. The planned conversion adds an approximately 178 megawatt steam turbine generator to Unit 2 that will be powered by steam generated using the exhaust heat from operation of Units 2A and 2B. Santee Cooper will add 2 heat recovery system generators, 1 steam surface condenser, a wet mechanical draft cooling tower, and other associated facilities. In simple cycle operation, air is drawn into the turbine and compressed. Fuel is injected into the turbine's combustion chamber, mixed with the hot compressed air, and burned. The hot gases resulting from the combustion move through the turbine blades, expanding and causing the blades to spin. The mechanical energy causes the drive shaft connected to the generator to rotate, producing electricity. In simple cycle operation, the hot gases produced from the combustion of the fuel and hot compressed air is discharged through a stack directly to the atmosphere. Once the conversion is complete, with the addition of heat recovery system, after passing through the steam turbine, the steam is condensed to water in a steam surface condenser and discharged to a heat recovery steam generator to be used again. The steam expands, causing the turbine blades to spin, and the draft shaft too connected to the generator to rotate, producing more electricity. The steam surface condenser is cooled by circulating water from a wet cooling tower. The cooling tower cools the circulating water through evaporation. The addition of heat recovery steam generator and associated facilities to the turbines on Unit 2 will increase the capacity of the Rainey generating station without the need for additional gas supply, without the need for additional transmission lines, and it will not require land disturbance activities on the site.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. At this time, Santee Cooper would call its first witness to the stand, Rahul Dimbla.
Mr. Dimbla, if you'll raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Dembla. Please state your name for the record.
Rahul Dembla.
And by whom are you employed and in what capacity?
I'm employed by Santee Cooper as its Chief Planning Officer.
And have you prepared or caused to be prepared under your supervision direct testimony of 27 pages that was previously filed with the Commission on September 16, 2024 in this docket?
Yes, I have.
Do you have any changes or additions to your pre-filed testimony?
Yes, I have two updates. I'm pleased to report that since the filing of my direct testimony, Santee Cooper's Board of Directors authorized Santee Cooper to construct and operate the project subject to this Commission's approval in this proceeding. Additionally, Central has approved the Rainey Combined Cycle Conversion Project as a shared resource under the Coordination Agreement.
Subject to these updates, if I asked you the same questions here today, would your answers be the same?
Yes.
Chair Powers, at this time, I move that the pre-filed direct testimony of Mr. Dembla be admitted into the record as if given orally from the stand.
The pre-filed direct testimony as corrected by Mr. Dembla will be entered into the record as is given orally from the stand.
Thank you. Mr. Dembla, have you prepared or caused to be prepared under your supervision one exhibit labeled as Dembla Direct Exhibit 1 that was previously filed with the Commission as an attachment to your pre-filed direct testimony in this docket?
Yes.
Do you have any changes or additions to your exhibit?
I do not.
Mr. Chairman, at this time, I move that the pre-filed exhibit of Mr. Dembla be labeled as Dembla Direct Exhibit 1 be admitted into the record as the next hearing exhibit.
The pre-filed exhibit of witness Dembla identified as Exhibit 1 is marked for identification will be placed in the record as Exhibit Number 1.
Thank you. Mr. Dembla, have you prepared a summary of your direct testimony?
Yes, I have.
Would you please deliver it at this time?
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Chair Powers and members of the Commission. In my direct testimony, I described the need for the Rainey combined cycle conversion and the various studies performed that support the recommendation to proceed with the proposed conversion. Santee Cooper plans to convert two existing simple cycle combustion turbines at the Rainey generating station to combined cycle operation, adding approximately 178 megawatts of winter net dependable capacity. When operated, the two existing gas combustion turbines produce a heat byproduct that is currently wasted. Following the completion of the project, Santee Cooper will capture this heat and convert it to beneficial energy. The Rainey station was originally constructed to allow the two existing turbines to be converted to combined cycle operation. To complete the conversion, Santee Cooper plans to add a steam turbine generator, two heat recovery steam generators, and associated facilities. As I explained, the combined cycle conversion is supported by robust analyses. The proposed conversion also has Central's support, who recently notified Santee Cooper that they would participate in the project as a shared resource under the Coordination Agreement. Under the terms of the Coordination Agreement, Central and Santee Cooper are required to cooperate and coordinate in the joint planning of future resources. On May 30th, 2024, the Joint Planning Committee for Santee Cooper and Central unanimously approved a load forecast for the combined system, which projects an approximately 1,000 megawatt increase in system demand by 2030, from that which was projected in Santee Cooper's 2023 IRP. Based on this most recent forecast, Santee Cooper identified a need for additional resources starting in the 2027 winter season, with the need ultimately increasing to approximately 2,150 megawatts by 2031 upon the assumed retirement of the Vinya coal station. Santee Cooper evaluated a range of renewable and traditional generation resources to address this growing need. Witness Settle's testimony describes this evaluation and modeling conducted for the 2024 Generation Expansion Plan, developed by Santee Cooper collaboratively with Central. Through this analysis, the Rainey combined cycle conversion was selected as one component of the most cost-effective portfolio to meet the system's capacity and energy needs. Central and Santee Cooper's Joint Planning Committee unanimously approved the 2024 Generation Expansion Plan on August 2nd, 2024. Subsequently, Santee Cooper filed our 2024 IRP annual update, currently pending before the Commission, which also includes analysis supporting the proposed conversion. Witness Iden's testimony describes the front-end engineering design or FEED study performed by Sargent and Lundy that provides high-level capital cost estimates for the proposed conversion. Sargent and Lundy also performed a business case evaluation that compared the levelized cost of energy of various alternatives to the proposed conversion. This analysis independently reached the same conclusion that supports this project. Among its many benefits, the Rainey combined cycle conversion increases capacity and energy without the need for additional fuel, thereby increasing efficiency and decreasing the fuel cost and emissions per megawatt hour of energy produced. The additional dispatchable capacity will also facilitate the integration of growing solar resources included in Santee Cooper's resource plan. The project utilizes an existing generating site that was already constructed to accommodate such a conversion. It can be implemented quicker relative to a new greenfield generating unit and in time to meet the system's winter peak as early as winter of 2028. Importantly, the project does not further impact or trigger land use considerations, does not require new electric transmission facilities, and does not require new gas transportation facilities. My testimony further explains the Rainey combined cycle conversion is consistent with Santee Cooper's approved 2023 IRP, in which Santee Cooper discussed expansion opportunities at the Rainey generating station, and also summarizes Santee Cooper's evaluation of the project against other generation and supply options. Through its various evaluations and modeling, Santee Cooper determined that the project is an important component of the most cost-effective portfolio by providing an additional 178 megawatts capacity by the winter of 2028. The proposed modification is consistent with Santee Cooper's resource diversification strategy, which would reduce reliance on coal and increase the share of energy from natural gas and renewable resources. Santee Cooper is confident that the project is in the best interest of Santee Cooper and its customers, and that the public convenience and necessity requires the construction and operation of the steam turbine generator and associated facilities. Therefore, Santee Cooper respectfully requests that the Commission issue a certificate of environmental compatibility and public convenience and necessity for the Rainey combined cycle conversion. This concludes my summary.
Thank you, Mr. Dimble. Chair Powers, at this time, Mr. Dimble is available for any cross-examination from the ORS and questioning by the Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper and Mr. Dembla. ORS, any questions?
No questions, Chair Powers. Thank you.
Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Williams.
Thank you, Chair Powers. Good morning, Mr. Dimble.
Good morning.
I'm just going to ask a few questions for clarification, but in your direct testimony, you talk about the system load forecast, identifying a capacity shortfall, and the need for additional resources beginning in 2026. Is that correct?
That is correct. I think we have taken some actions since then, and I believe we are in very good shape for the winter of 2026, and now are working on more resources to identify the capacity resources starting winter of 2027.
Okay. And then you referenced in your summary winter of 2028. Is that December of 2027 to February of 2028?
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And why has this solution not been considered, or has it been considered sooner? Why has it not been? Why are we just at this point?
So I believe in the 2023 IRP filing, which was developed, most of the work on that was done in the year 2022. I know this has been a topic that's been in development. I know there was a FEED study that was being commissioned at the time, being worked on. So the 23 IRP, determined the resource path, that the natural gas combined cycle capacity is very valuable for the system going forward. And at the time, the assumptions and the feasibility of this project were being evaluated and developed. And now we are, subsequently, I think that work was completed, which was necessary to do some meaningful analysis for this project. I think all this, and in confluence with what's happened with the load projections,
Right.
with the demand growth, I think has made this a very good opportunity for Santee Cooper and its customers to proceed with this project with urgency.
I'm going to ask it another way, and this is just for me to understand. Combined cycle was used with the number one associated resource.
Correct.
Why was this not considered, or was it considered in 2002 when the first resource went into place?
Commissioner, I was not here at the time, but it is my understanding that I've been working with Santee Cooper in different roles for several years, and I know that what you're seeing in the past 3 years regarding load projections and growth is a fairly recent phenomenon in the industry and for Santee Cooper. There was a period of time when Santee Cooper was long, and it had enough capacity. So I think the capital investment at the time associated with this project probably was not. My guess is it was not considered a benefit at the time. However, since then many things have changed. Since 2002, the natural gas prices have improved a lot. I think it has. With the shale revolution, I think there's been a significant improvement in the value of power produced from natural gas, and there's been more of a push to retire coal and diversify our resources. And I think all those factors are contributing to how valuable this project is today.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Sure.
I think I have just a couple more questions. In your pre-filed direct testimony, you talk about Santee Cooper's existing energy and where you procure it from, long-term and short-term. How do you make those determinations? And I guess where I'm heading from this is, what's the impact of this purchase on needing resources outside of your own resources?
Commissioner Williams, if you'd point me to the section of my testimony that you're referencing, that may be helpful to me.
I unfortunately cannot do that.
Okay.
So I don't.
Okay.
I suspect your testimony is on my floor at my house where I was looking at it last
that's
night.
fine. If you could
So
clarify.
I can let the question go, or I can try to ask it a little differently if you want.
Yes, if you don't mind, Commissioner Williams, please ask me one more time.
Tell me if my understanding is wrong, but I have the impression that Santee Cooper is procuring resources from outside of its own production. Is that true?
Yes, Central and Santee Cooper have procured off-system resources.
Off-system resources.
Yes.
And I think what I'm asking is, how does this play into that? What's the impact of, if this facility is granted, then what's the impact to the need for off-system resources?
So, Commissioner Williams, in-state capacity, reliable in-state dispatchable capacity of this nature, which is very efficient, I would say is a premium product in the capacity constrained conditions we are operating in today. Having said that, I think Santee Cooper's resource strategy is, as it's commonly called, all of the above approach.
Right.
We'll need all various type of resources. I think what may drive us more towards off-system resources is could be timing, for example. If the load, it takes a time to construct resources and have them ready in state. And I think if you're trying, and there are inquiries from data centers, other load prospects who are wanting to connect to the system sooner. And there is other growth within the state from our own direct service territory. There's a vibrant economy, a lot of people moving to Myrtle Beach. The need for reliability is going up. Our reserve margin is up to 18% now. It used to be 12% a few years ago. I think all these factors sometimes need us to go and procure capacity off system. We always do that evaluation. There's an economic evaluation and there's a reliability evaluation. So we will always we issue a request for proposals, get pricing information from the off-system markets, and then take into consideration the cost implication, but also the reliability impact of having in-state generation, which I believe is very important for the state.
And so if this is granted, does it reduce the need, the likelihood of the need for off-system resources?
I would say everything else being equal, conditions change, load demand changes, but everything else being equal, it would not eliminate but reduce the need for other resources. Yes.
Okay. You may not be the right person for this last question, but you talk about economic development and load. Is the location of this facility, does that create any opportunities for economic development in that region, or is the benefit system-wide? Is there any more for that region, is what I'm trying to ask.
So from my perspective, Commissioner Williams, it's both. I mean, the value of 178 megawatt of capacity is great value for the entire state, and it's going to support through our integrated transmission network, it can support customers throughout the region, along with the rest of our generation fleet. But in the local economy, I think there would be impacts. It's my understanding that during the construction period, there could be up to 300 jobs created for this project. And then there will be some permanent jobs, not to that scale at all, maybe less than 10, which is what makes this cost effective. Rainey Generating Station already has a staff operating those, the various combustion turbines and the combined cycle. And I think with some more addition of the full-time employees, we could continue to operate this in the combined cycle mode.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams. Commissioner Belser.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Mr. Dembla.
Good morning.
What you've updated your testimony to discuss that Central has now agreed to participate in the project as a shared resource. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
What's the importance of that?
It's significant. I think how so one thing, per the coordination agreement, the evaluation and the generation expansion plan is what we call it per the coordination agreement. That's a defined term. We developed this plan together. So we had a joint system forecast, and then we bring all the resource options to the table and then let the model select which are the least cost options. I think Central and Santee Cooper staff did this together, shared information with each other. Now, once the plan is produced and it says that this project is a cost-effective solution for the system, I think there are two paths, and the path of least resistant and quick execution, from my perspective, was Central's full buy-in into this project, so we could move quickly and get this resource in place by the winter of 2028, which is when the system needs it. So it helps a lot. The other path, which should have taken longer, was if Central was not supportive of the project and they decided to opt out, in which case Central and Santee Cooper would have to find their share of this resource. And Santee Cooper's direct service territory share would have been approximately 30% of the 178 megawatt capacity, and Central's share would have been about 70%. So we would have had to find a path forward in a different manner, which was still compliant with the overall plan for the system.
Well, since Central has elected to participate in the project as a shared resource, do they also share in the cost?
Yes, they do.
Okay. So it pushes some of the cost to Central and not just Santee Cooper's direct serve customer.
That's correct, Commissioner Belser. I think if one central opts in, it becomes a part of our shared portfolio that Central and Santee Cooper operates on behalf of the combined system. But then the coordination agreement has a section which allocates cost to them on an adjust to actual basis. So whatever costs Santee Cooper would actually incur, a large, Central's share of that, approximately 70%, will be allocated to Central on an annual basis.
And this may be more appropriate for another witness, but you do mention the retirement. Right now, the projected retirement of Winyah in 2031? Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that's a significant retirement, is it not?
It is,
And
yes.
so, and you mentioned the all-above approach. So Santee Cooper is really looking to replace that generation in addition to increased load forecast just from growth in the state. Is that correct?
That is, yes. It is a significant challenge, but yes.
And would you describe that as potentially a heavy lift?
A heavy lift, which we are actively working towards, yes.
And right now, or as Rainey is, there are 6, am I correct? There's 6 generating turbines or 6 units there. Would that be a correct?
Yeah, there is a combined cycle unit 1, and then there are these 2 CTs that are going to be converted into a combined cycle. And besides that, there are 3 other small CTs.
Okay. And there's additional work going on at Rainey as well. Aren't there some upfits going on? I think you mentioned the IRP, and that's where.
Right. Besides this conversion, there is an opportunity to extract more capacity from the remaining units through some upgrades, and that work is. I'm not sure if that's ongoing, but that's being actively evaluated, and it's in our plan. Yes.
And what would happen if the commission did not approve this plan? What would happen with the need aspect? If the commission denied this application, what would happen to with Santee Cooper being able to procure and produce enough electricity for its customers?
It would significantly set us back, but we will actively begin evaluating and working towards other alternatives. And as I mentioned before, this is one of the quickest projects we can implement within our system. But we will, what makes it even better is because it does not require significant transmission upgrades. Sometimes you can bring generation like battery storage in within a short period of time with the same duration, but you need transmission upgrades depending on the location of that battery storage. And so I think it could be a combination of other resources. We would likely go back and look at off-system resources, which we still might have to meet the demands for the system. But this 178 megawatts would be very valuable for us to be able to reliably serve the needs of the state and our system.
And is this site unique in that Santee Cooper can do a project like this on an existing site, or all sites are not capable of just retrofitting or adding to that site? Would that be a correct statement?
That's a correct statement, yes.
So if another site couldn't have an upgrade or a retrofit or conversion project or whatever the term might be, it would require a greenfield site, would it not?
Yes, it would.
And that would add to cost?
It would add to the cost, and it would add to the timeline and environmental impacts, yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate your testimony today. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Belser. Commissioner Caston.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
On page 19 of your direct, and thinking about, I guess, a response you had to Commissioner Williams relative to load growth or the past versus now. On, I think, line 12, 13, we're going to 11, you say the IRP and the GEP, which is, I think, the Generation Expansion Plan. evaluation resulting from these processes are based on a comprehensive optimization of resources to meet projected loads over a 30-year study period. How long has Santee Cooper used a 30-year planning period for resources and load projections?
Going back to any resource plan over the past 4 to 6 years that I've been involved in at Santee Cooper, I think it's been 30 years or a similar duration. I recall that 2023 IRP had a study period through 2052, is my recollection. I think the important thing is the study period, whether it's 25 years, 25 to 35 years, or 30 years, should be long enough to fully capture the value of these resources, the useful life. And I think as long as the duration covers that period, it provides a robust response. It provides a good framework for making decisions.
And thinking about that, that 30-year planning period, that exceeds your statutory requirement, doesn't it?
I do not believe so, Commissioner. I believe it lays out 20 years or 30-year periods. It's as long as it's a long-term period. I'm not sure of that, Commissioner.
That's quite all right.
I do recall, Commissioner, that there's specific language in the law about these periods, and in our IRP we complied with that by producing multiple reports. So that was a analysis done which encompassed the useful life of the assets being evaluated, which we believe was important to have the right answer. But then we complied, make sure the present values were reported for the different periods, which then complied with the legislation. And that may have been 20 years.
I don't want you to think I'm criticizing a 30-year planning period. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, so 30 years I don't think a whole lot about, but I get it from a planning period for a utility, and I guess, you can check all that, but I think it's 20 years and then maybe 15 years projections. I'm not sure. I don't recall either, but it seemed like I recall 20 year for Santee. But that said, thinking about, and I think in one of your responses to Commissioner Carrot Lee Williams, you were talking about years back, there just wasn't significant growth, and it appears the growth in these large users, whether it's data center, AI facilities, just sort of caught everyone by surprise. But thinking about a 30-year planning period or a 20-year planning period, which only God knows, but you want to make the best guesses you can. Do you know how, generally speaking, that's done relative to, say, industrial? Does the utility say, hey, we want to assume a 10% industrial growth, or 20, or 100 megawatts in the next 10 years? Do you know generally how the utility approaches such as that?
Commissioner Caston, it's changing times. I think in the past, Santee Cooper in its load projections has developed some analysis for its direct served territory, not the industrial customers, trying to estimate what the demographics are, the population growth. So that work is done with consultants and includes economic analysis, projections put forward by entities like Moody's that project how the GDP would grow, and so on and so forth, employment. For the industrial customers, what we do have a customer relationship group, industrial customer relations, and and Central and co-ops also have close relationships with their customers. They have dialogue with each other, and through those conversations during the load forecast development process, we've only included in our projections load that we know is either based on a signed agreement, or if we have a very high level of confidence that a contract will be executed soon, which would require us to plan for it. Now, in the past 2 or 3 years, we've noticed, and this is an industry-wide phenomenon, that there have been, with the data centers and artificial intelligence, the inshoring of manufacturing, there have been a lot of inquiries regarding load, very like step increases in load forecast, like several hundred megawatts at a time. So I think all the utilities are adapting their forecasting and planning processes to react to that. And I think Santee Cooper has done something similar. We have in the load forecast, which is incorporated in our IRP filings, we have tried to get feedback from stakeholders. We've worked with Central and other participants within Santee Cooper to estimate what is the probability of connection of these different conversations. Do they own a site, for example? How much work they've done? And if the inquiries are serious, we try to do probabilistic analysis and try to incorporate some of this load into our planning, so we'll be ready to serve it when it comes. And we are already seeing this work paying off, because several of these entities that expressed interest are now signing on to the system through Central or Santee Cooper. Was that responsive, Commissioner?
Quite responsive.
Okay, thank you.
And as far as your 30-year plan, do you know generally how often Santee Cooper updates that, thinking in terms of population projections and load projections? I know with the IRP, we have the annual updates, and this seems to be maybe a separate plan, but maybe you use them all to develop one. But I was just curious, do you update that annually? Do you look at it every 5 years? Or how do you adjust or verify your 30-year plan?
So Santee Cooper has, and this is a requirement in the coordination agreement as well. We have always annually updated our load forecast. Now, the changes in the load forecast from year to year were never as drastic. And the annual IRP update and the triennial full IRP filing, was a very good frequency for capturing these changes. I think now, if there are big changes to load forecast intra-year, right? And as I'm mentioning, these are not 20, 30 megawatts. These could be several hundred megawatts. I think we have to look at our planning processes and make sure that we can incorporate that in our planning and be able to serve the needs of the system. So I think now it's our job to comply with the coordination agreement, and then to ensure that the annual IRP update filings we make are consistent. They tell the same story. They're based on, if not identical, similar analytics, because again, every plan is a snapshot in time. So if the time passes, some assumptions vary, it may impact the analytics behind it, but the overall picture and the recommendation and the conclusions in all these planning processes should be same.
Okay, let me tell you what I think I heard, and you tell me if I'm close or way off.
Yes, sir.
You have the certain requirements from the IRP and the annual updates. And relative to just the planning, where there's a 30-year plan, but how Santee Cooper looks ahead. If you're in a high growth area, service area, you probably need to look more often or check on it more often. Slow growth area or not much happening, maybe not as often. Is that what you said?
Yeah, I indicated that the growth we are seeing right now, which is unlike anything that's been seen in the past 2 decades, that our planning processes need to adapt, and we are adapting those to make sure we can react to this fast changing growth, that we can be more dynamic and we can move quickly and bring these resources to the table. And for one of the reasons in our application, we requested the Commission to expedite the review of this application, for which we thank you.
Thank you. You've been very helpful, and I know the challenges involved with good planning. It's easy to be criticized if you guess too high, too low. Nobody knows until time passes. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Caston. Any further commissioner questions? Commissioner Thomas?
Thank you. Appreciate it. Good morning.
Good morning.
So, in connection with the other units at the Rainey station, they are not, they were not planned in the same manner to be upgraded like these two units. Is that correct?
That is my understanding, correct.
And do you happen to know if Santee Cooper owns other assets that were planned around the state that could be upgraded in the same manner?
So Commissioner Thomas, we have, this is really the only large natural gas station we have with several CTs, which would be able to accommodate a conversion like this. We recently purchased a Cherokee plant, which is 98 megawatts, much smaller, which is already operating as a combined cycle. So I believe that's this is the only opportunity. However, there is we have a team that manages our generation, and they bring opportunities forward like this. So from the planning perspective, if we receive other opportunities that I'm not aware of today, we would definitely kind of put that in our bucket of options and do an evaluation. But I'm not aware, and I do not believe those opportunities exist at a scale, especially at this scale, 178 megawatts.
Okay, thank you. And so who is the Santee Cooper employee that is going to be responsible for overseeing the construction, the timeline, and the budget?
Witness Dills, who's present today, I think will be the person, him and his team.
All right, thank you very much. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Thomas. Mr. Dimble, I just have a couple of questions. I hope they make sense. In your opinion, why did nobody see all this coming as far as the rapid growth of the AI centers and what was going to happen?
Commissioner Powers, Chair Powers, I think it's the conversations around this really picked up, my recollection, about 2.5, 3 years ago. I think it's and I think most utilities started reacting. If you recall, I think during the 2023 IRP, which did not include these prospective loads, I think there was already conversation, and it was captured in the Commission's order to Santee Cooper that Santee Cooper, you need to look at other load forecasting approaches to accommodate these kind of inquiries, because this is unprecedented. And we did that, and I think many utilities around the same time have seen a similar trend where the load projections growth over the next 5 to 6 years have gone from 0.5%, 0.3% to now 3%, which is very significant, I think. And Santee Cooper has seen something similar. It is a pretty recent phenomenon. If you recall the conversations around AI, artificial intelligence, I'm not an expert in that industry, but there was no concept of people using ChatGPT to do things 3 years ago. I may have some timing off, but it's around that time frame. So these are fairly recent phenomenon, I think, for the entire industry.
As far as allocation of cost between Central's customers and the co-ops and Santee Cooper, is that based upon the number of customers, or is there some sort of formula that I'm sure will always change that is used to decide the allocation?
It is a complicated allocation process, but at a very high level, and also depends on the category of cost. So, for example, the demand costs, would be driven by the demand that each of these system drives. So, if the fixed cost related to, for example, debt service for this, the cost of this project, which would be a demand cost, would be allocated to Central. The debt service would be allocated to Central approximately 70% because that would be their winter peak demand. That's a very high level response. Then the energy costs are based on how the energy is utilized by the two systems. So it's a
Well, and I think about the equity of all this as far as allocation of cost, long term. Do you think some of these AI industries should be making or paying some of these costs, or is it fair for the customers to pick up all the construction and all the preparation to have sufficient power that we really didn't need before?
So the Chair Powers, we do have a rates team and a customer management team that's looking at the long-term impacts of that. I think a lot of this demand and the spend that this would result in would also be offset by the increased revenues from these customers. So I think that there are several ways to mitigate this, and when the contracts are signed with these customers, I think Santee Cooper will, and other utilities are dealing with similar challenges, will have to make sure that there's appropriate length of the contracts so that these costs can be recovered. For example, if we are gonna put several hundred megawatts of capacity on the system, we can't have a 2-year contract and then let these customers walk away. So I think some of those, that risk mitigation would occur through our contract administration. And then there we have a rate-making team, which would also analyze these opportunities and make sure that we mitigate these kind of risks to other customers.
All right. Thank you very much. Any further commissioner questions? Any redirect?
No redirect, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. You may stand down.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
you, commissioners.
You hadn't forgotten how to do that, have you?
I had. Chair Powers, Santee Cooper calls John Dills, Paul Iden, and Brian Lynch to the stand.
Come forward, gentlemen.
Mr. Dills, if you'll raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Mr. Iden, if you'll raise your right hand, do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. And Mr. Lynch, if you'll raise your right hand, do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
All right, Mr. Dills, I'm going to start with you. Would you please state your name for the record?
I think so. Sorry.
It's on now.
Oh, okay. John Dills.
Thank you. And by whom are you employed and in what capacity?
Santee Cooper, and I'm Director of New Generation.
And Mr. Dills, have you prepared or caused to be prepared under your supervision direct testimony of 13 pages that was previously filed with the Commission on September 16th, 2024 in this docket?
Yes, I did.
And do you have any changes or additions to your pre-filed direct testimony?
I have one update. Santee Cooper issued requests for proposals for the competitive procurement of long lead time components, including the steam turbine generator, the heat recovery steam generators, and the step-up transformer on October 7th, 2024.
Thank you, Mr. Dills. And subject to that update, if I asked you the same questions here today, would your answers be the same?
Yes.
Chair Powers, at this time, I move that the pre-filed direct testimony of Mr. Dills is updated, be admitted into the record as if given orally from the stand.
The pre-filed direct testimony, Mr. Dills, will be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand.
Mr. Dills, have you prepared a summary of your direct testimony?
I have.
Would you please share that with us at this time?
Good morning, Commissioners. In my direct testimony, I described the proposed steam turbine generator and associated facilities to be constructed at the Rainey Generating Station near Ivy, South Carolina, and provide a general overview of the associated costs and construction schedule. Santee Cooper presently operates two simple cycle combustion turbines designated as units 2A and 2B at Rainey Generating Station. These existing combustion turbines are rated at approximately 180 megawatts winter net dependable capacity and are similar in type to the two simple cycle combustion turbines at the existing combined cycle facility at the station. Units 2A and 2B are gas fuel generating stations that, when operated, produces a heat byproduct. This heat byproduct occurs whenever the plant runs, but currently this heat is wasted and there is no beneficial use. Santee Cooper plans to increase the generation output and capacity capability of the Rainey generating station by capturing this heat byproduct and using it to make steam that will power a steam turbine and produce additional energy with no additional fuel requirement. Specifically, Santee Cooper plans to construct a steam turbine generator, 2 heat recovery steam generators, and other associated facilities at a cost of $470 million to convert 2 existing simple cycle natural gas combustion turbines to combined cycle operation and increase the generation output and capacity capability at Rainey Generating Station by approximately 178 megawatts. Once installed, the heat recovery steam generators will capture waste heat from the operation of the 2 existing combustion turbines and use it to make steam to power the steam generator. The combined cycle will be able to produce approximately 50% more energy with the same amount of natural gas, thereby maximizing generation efficiency, minimizing fuel usage, and supporting the increased demand of the combined system. Rainey Generating Station is an ideal site for this project because it already has an existing natural gas supply and because when first installed, the 2 simple cycle combustion turbines were arranged such that additional components could be added later without substantially affecting operation during the conversion to combined cycle. Santee Cooper issued a request for proposals for competitive procurement of long lead time components, including the steam turbine generator, the heat recovery steam generators, and the step-up transformer on October 7, 2024, but will not award any bids until the Commission grants the certificate requested in this proceeding. Santee Cooper anticipates completion of construction and commissioning of the steam turbine and associated facilities in 2027 with a targeted commercial operation for the winter season of 2028, which is December 27th through February 2028. This concludes my summary.
Thank you, Mr. Dills. Mr. Iden, would you please state your name for the record?
Paul Iden,
And by whom are you employed and in what capacity?
Sergeant in Lundy. I'm a project director and senior vice president.
And Mr. Iden, have you prepared or caused to be prepared under your supervision direct testimony of 15 pages that was previously filed with the Commission on September 16th, 2024 in this docket?
Yes, I have.
And do you have any changes or additions to your pre-filed direct testimony?
No, I do not.
So if I asked you the same questions here today, would your answers be the same?
Yes, they would.
Chair Powers, at this time, I'll move that the pre-filed direct testimony of Mr. Paul Iden be admitted into the record as if given orally from the stand.
The pre-filed direct testimony, Mr. Iden, will be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand.
And Mr. Iden, have you also prepared or caused to be prepared under your supervision 4 exhibits labeled as Iden Direct Exhibit 1, Iden Direct Exhibit 2, Iden Direct Exhibit 3, and Iden Direct Exhibit 4 that were previously filed with the commissions as attachments to your pre-filed direct testimony?
Yes, that's correct.
And for clarity, both a public redacted version and a confidential version of Iden Direct Exhibit 1 were filed with the commission. Is that correct?
Yes.
And do you have any changes or additions to your exhibits?
No, I do not.
Chair Powers, at this time, I move that the pre-filed exhibits of Mr. Iden, labeled as Iden Direct Exhibits 1 through 4, be admitted into the record as the next hearing composite exhibit, and that the confidential version of Iden Direct Exhibit 1 be maintained under seal as ordered by this commission in order number 2024-680.
The pre-filed exhibits of witness Iden identified as Iden Direct 1 through 4 are marked for identification will be placed in the record as exhibit number 2. The confidential version shall remain confidential as long as legally necessary.
Thank you. Mr. Iden, have you prepared a summary of your direct testimony?
Yes, I have.
Would you please share that with us at this time?
Good morning, Chair Powers and members of the Commission. In my direct testimony, I discussed the front-end engineering design, or FEED study, that Sergeant Lundy conducted to evaluate technical issues and estimate a high-level capital cost for the Rainey combined cycle conversion, which involves the construction of 2 heat recovery steam generators and a steam turbine generator to convert 2 natural gas combustion turbines at Rainey Generating Station to combined cycle operation. Among other things, the FEED study considered that the project design follows the Rainey Unit 1 combined cycle configuration and that of other combined cycle plants designed by Sargent and Lundy, that the new equipment easily fits within the available footprint because of the original planning for Rainey Generating Station envisioned this expansion, and that operation and maintenance of the converted Unit 2 will be comparable to that of Unit 1 and therefore well understood by plant personnel. Based on these considerations, the FEED study concluded that the Rainey combined cycle conversion offers a viable way to increase the capacity and efficiency of the Rainey Generating Station. The integration of similar equipment on an existing site is an effective approach for expansion. In the FEED study, Sergeant Lundy estimated that the project will take 3 years to complete from the issuance of a certificate of environmental compatibility and public convenience and necessity by the Commission at an overall capital cost of $380 million, subject to contingency and escalation. I also discussed the business case evaluation that Sergeant Lundy prepared, comparing the levelized cost of energy of various electric generation and energy storage options to the Rainey combined cycle conversion. Specifically, Sergeant Lundy evaluated alternative generation and energy storage options for a similar rate of electrical output to the proposed steam turbine generator. The alternatives considered in detail were a new natural gas-fired simple cycle gas turbine and a new photovoltaic solar facility with battery storage. Sergeant Lundy also considered a new greenfield combined cycle plant and a new wind facility. However, wind did not warrant a detailed review due to low wind capacity potential in South Carolina, and a new greenfield combined cycle plant would be higher cost than the proposed Rainey combined cycle conversion. The business case evaluation showed that the Rainey combined cycle conversion is the superior option when considered against various other generation options, and this conclusion remains constant over the range of fuel pricing in the sensitivity analysis. The business case evaluation also qualitatively assessed project development considerations and identified the other advantages of the Rainey combined cycle conversion: a higher capacity factor for providing electricity, more flexibility in providing firm electrical capacity, and the use of existing infrastructure and land within the Rainey plant boundary. Also, under typical operating conditions, a combined cycle plant experiences higher availability correlated to the net capacity factor compared to a simple cycle plant or a solar plus storage facility. In short, based on the FEED study and the business case evaluation, Sergeant Lundy recommends that Santee Cooper proceed with the Rainey combined cycle conversion. It is a cost-effective method of providing additional electrical generation at improved efficiency and lower emission rates, and takes advantage of existing infrastructure and current industrial space. This concludes my summary.
Thank you, Mr. Iden. Mr. Lynch, would you please state your name for the record?
Brian Lynch.
And by whom are you employed and in what capacity?
Santee Cooper. I'm the Director of Environmental Services.
Mr. Lynch, have you prepared or caused to be prepared under your supervision direct testimony of 11 pages that was previously filed with this commission on September the 16th, 2024 in this docket?
Yes.
And do you have any changes or additions to your pre-filed direct testimony?
Yes, I have 1 correction and 2 updates. With respect to the corrections, on page 9, lines 5 through 6, strike the words "will make necessary updates during the renewal process" and replace them with "has submitted the necessary updates to modify the MPDS on October 31st, 2024. Turning to the updates first, I am pleased to report that South Carolina Department of Environmental Services has issued Santee Cooper a minor air construction permit yesterday, January 7th, 2025. And second, since the filing of this application in the docket, the United States Fish and Wildlife Service has released final tools and guidance documents for both the tricolored and long-eared bat, and proposed a new rule to list the monarch butterfly as endangered. Although not required for completeness, Santee Cooper has hired Burns & McDonald Engineering Company Incorporated to perform a desktop review and in-field visit to the project area to assess potential impacts of wildlife, protected species, and/or their habitat that may result from the construction and operation of these facilities. Burns & McDonald determined that the construction of facilities in the existing location is not anticipated to impact any federal or state protected species.
Subject to the correction and the updates, if I asked you the same questions here today, would your answers be the same?
Yes.
Chair Powers, at this time I move that the pre-filed direct testimony of Mr. Lynch is corrected and updated be admitted into the record as if given orally from the stand.
The pre-filed direct testimony as corrected and updated of Mr. Lynch will be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand.
Mr. Lynch, have you prepared or caused to be prepared under your supervision 2 exhibits labeled as Lynch Direct Exhibit 1 and Lynch Direct Exhibit 2 that were previously filed with the commission as attachments to your direct testimony in this docket?
Yes.
Do you have any changes or additions to your exhibits?
No.
Chair Powers, at this time, I move that the pre-filed exhibits of Mr. Lynch, labeled as Lynch Direct Exhibit 1 and Lynch Direct Exhibit 2, be admitted into the record as the next hearing composite exhibit.
The pre-filed exhibits of witness Lynch identified as Lynch Direct 1 and 2 are marked for identification, placed in the record as exhibit number 3.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Lynch, have you prepared a summary of your direct testimony?
Yes, I have.
Would you please share that with us at this time?
Yes. Good morning, Commissioners. In my direct testimony, I discussed the anticipated environmental impact of the proposed steam turbine generator and associated facilities and the status of permitting and proposed combined cycle conversion product at the Rainey Generating Station. The primary advantage of this combined cycle conversion project at Rainey Generating Station is that it generates needed additional energy and capacity through the construction and operation of a steam turbine and associated facilities which do not release any air emissions, thereby reducing the emissions, including CO2 emissions, on a per megawatt per hour of energy produced basis. My testimony explains that the construction of the steam turbine generator and associated facilities at the Rainey Generating Station, which is planned to accommodate the combined cycle operation, will not have any significant adverse environmental impacts and will have no impacts to land use, cultural resources, existing ecology, vegetation, and wildlife. Moreover, a greenfield site would require the construction of natural gas infrastructure to supply fuel to the combined cycle unit and transmission infrastructure to transmit power from the site, whereas the Rainey Generating Station requires neither. With respect to permitting, my testimony explains that the project will not be subject to the prevention of significant deterioration requirements or a new source performance standard for greenhouse gases. The South Carolina Department of Environmental Services issued Santee Cooper a minor air construction permit on January 7th, 2025. The project will require, upon completion of the construction, incorporation of the permitted changes from the construction permit into the Title V operating permit and an update to Santee Cooper's National Pollution Discharge Elimination System wastewater permit prior to operation. Santee Cooper is committed to complying with all applicable state, local, environmental laws and regulations during the construction and operation of the combined unit cycle. This concludes my summary.
Thank you, Mr. Lynch. Chair Powers, at this time, the panel is available for cross-examination by ORS and questioning by the commission.
Thank you, Mr. Gitzendamer. Any questions from ORS?
No questions, Chair Powers. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from commissioners?
Chair Powers.
Commissioner Thomas.
Thank you. Good morning. All right, so Mr. Dills, you indicated that on October the 7th, the RFPs were issued. So do those have a time frame for when the responses are due?
Yes, sir. We have received responses from all of those, and we are currently evaluating those bids in anticipation of awarding once we have permission to do so from the commission.
Okay, and so I would assume, obviously, at this point, you haven't been able to complete a full evaluation.
No, sir, that's correct. We're still in the process.
can you say generally things came in a range that you would have expected?
Yes, sir. I believe all of the bids are right in line with where we thought they would be.
Okay. And I understand that you're the person that will be responsible for overseeing the construction and the timeline and the budget. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And do you feel comfortable that you can ensure that things progress on the proposed timeline and within the proposed budget?
Yes, sir, I do. I'm very confident in the schedule and the budget.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's all I have.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Thomas. Vice Chair Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
And this question is open to the panel, but probably more for you, sir. I can't see your
John Dills.
Name to the far left. If you happen to run into cost overruns and delays, what's the plan of action to address those issues if they arise?
Well, you know, we believe we've developed a good budget with a reasonable contingency in it. Of course, you can never tell what'll happen during construction, but we are not. Our board approved $470 million total project expenditure on this, and we can't exceed that without board's permission. So we would have to prepare something and go back to the board to ask permission to exceed that budget.
Based on the budget you prepared and the anticipated cost for the facility, what changes or potential pivots would you think would occur if you were to run into cost overruns and delays?
So the project really can't be completed without everything that's in the budget. There is nothing that we could avoid doing. And by that, what I mean is there's nothing extra built in to, you know, nice things that we're doing for the station. Everything is required to complete the conversion to combined cycle operation. So really nothing we can do if we can't build it within the budget.
So if I understand you correctly, that means that the budget is as lean as it could possibly be.
Yes, sir. I mean, there are contingency dollars in it that if we don't use, we won't use. I mean, they would be returned to the, you know, we just wouldn't spend the money on the project. So the project would come in under budget should we not need to use those contingency dollars.
Thank you for that. And I don't want to, if this question goes too far into maybe some proprietary information, just feel free to let me know. I'm fine if you don't answer it. Are there any incentives to come in under budget?
The way we're planning to execute this project, everything is competitively bid. We are intending to operate this project not as an EPC project, but as what some people would call multi-prime, which means we are the general contractor on it. So each individual block of work will be bid competitively. And so yes, there's big incentive to bring it in as low as we possibly can because it benefits our customers in doing so. And you know, of course, nobody wants to go back to their board and and tell them we made a mistake and we're going to go over budget. So we have incentives to keep this project within the budget.
Thank you, sir. And so does the buck stop with you if you do experience cost overruns and delays? Are you the person that's going back to the board?
Yes, sir. I will be, along with my superiors. Yes.
Okay. Who are your superiors?
Scott Smith and Mike Fennessy.
How confident are you that you can deliver the project on time and within your budget?
I am very confident. We recently went through a schedule review a few weeks ago. The budget has been critiqued, and the bids that are starting to come in or are here, the first sets of bids, all look in line with where they should be. I'm very confident that we will be able to bring this project in on time and within budget.
And I'm just going to go a little bit further with you on your level of confidence, if you can. Are you prepared to give a percentage of confidence, or is that too much to ask?
I'm 100% confident we can do this.
I wasn't prepared to hear that. Okay, 100%. All right. Well, that settles it then. I have no further questions for you, sir.
Thank you.
Commissioner Williams, if I could add a little background
yes,
information, please. In developing this project, it is well-proven technology. Combined cycles involving HRSGs and steam turbines have been operating for decades. There's dozens and dozens of examples of these types of plants throughout the country. So it's well-proven technology. There's no first-of-a-kind risks. The amount of contingency that's included in the budget is very consistent with what we see throughout the industry across the country. So likewise, I'm very confident in this project. We are developing a risk mitigation plan so that we have plans in place if things don't go exactly according to plan. These types of risk mitigation measures are consistent for projects of these type. So I agree with what Mr. Dills has summarized.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate it. Mr. Chair, I have no further questions.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Before I turn it over to Commissioner Caston, so I won't forget my question. And this is probably elementary. Where's the waste heat going now into the atmosphere?
Okay. It's on. It exits out the existing exhaust stacks and just goes up into the atmosphere.
Okay. So by using it, this will be a real environmental improvement, would it not?
Absolutely. Yes.
A real benefit.
Yes. I mean, it benefits in several ways. I mean, there's an efficiency gain that you get from the turbine. So you produce, from adding the steam turbine, so you produce additional megawatts that way without expending more natural gas. So the emissions haven't changed. And so when you increase the megawatts, your CO2 and NOx and all that, all of the emissions go down per megawatt hour that you produce. So two benefits: it's cheaper power, and you reduce the overall amount of emissions per megawatt hour that you produce.
All right. That's good. Thank you. Commissioner Caston.
Thank you. And still good morning. If you can answer this, it sounds like everything's already designed. You got it out for bids. Your consultant was that Sargent and Lundy that designed?
Yes.
And one thing I've learned: no owner or owner's consultant typically wants to be the high bidder on a project. And kind of looking at the testimony, I think in Mr. Iden's, you had 380 million, you had 470, I think approximately 470 million. Were you looking at the same thing? And I know, Mr. Iden, you said it was a high level. Are those two numbers looking at the same thing?
Yes, the $380 million is prior to adding contingency, escalation, and some owner's costs.
Okay, and that's about 19–20%, something like that difference.
Yes.
And that was specifically what it was, contingency, escalate. Do you know about how much of that was contingency?
I'm going to refer to the feed study to contingency is slightly over $50 million.
I've never heard anybody say 100%, but we trust you. And something not pertaining to that, but I think you'd mentioned, Mr. Iden, relative to wind didn't warrant detailed review due to low wind capacity potential in South Carolina. And thinking back to the IRP, I think Santee Cooper included that in its short-term action plan. I think we had 100 megawatts or somewhere around that. Is this a newfound discovery? Will that affect future IRPs relative to that generation source? Do you know?
No, I believe it will not. The introduction of wind as a resource typically is for different operating profiles where that operating can be intermittent because, of course, the wind's not always blowing. So there still is a place for wind. In our comparison, when we're looking at the ability to run the Rainey conversion close to 24/7, it's just a different resource where it makes wind not attractive compared to the ability to run the Rainey conversion as a base load facility.
Okay. That's all I got. Thank you, gentlemen.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Cass and Commissioner Belser.
Thank you. Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for being with us today.
Good morning.
Mr. Iden, I just have a very quick question, and it relates to the business. The business case analysis, your Exhibit 2. And I noticed, and you did explain it somewhat, that the net present value is much higher than the alternatives that were studied in there, but the levelized cost of energy was quite a bit lower. Would that be a fair statement?
Correct.
Okay. And I think your response to Commissioner Caston goes to this. Help me understand the magnitude and why the net present value is so much higher for this conversion project than the alternatives that were evaluated.
It's related to availability. So being able to run the conversion project around the clock drives down the levelized cost of energy, which is dollars per megawatt hour. So the ability to be producing those megawatts essentially continuous drives down the levelized cost of energy, which makes it the attractive option.
Okay, so is the LCOE a more favorable metric to look at rather than net present value? Not favorable, maybe more important with regard to the comparisons?
Yes, it's important because we're with that metric we're capturing the ability to create megawatts, the ability to how much megawatts are we producing and putting onto the grid.
So do you get more bang for your buck, so to speak, from the conversion project than the other
Yes.
alternatives? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you,
Thank you,
And
Commissioner
let me
Bells.
just follow up. And because of the lesser levelized cost of energy, is that a driving factor with regard to your recommendation that this is probably the most favorable alternative?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Belson. Any further commissioner questions? Commissioner Thomas?
Thank you. In connection with the natural gas generating units, we've heard about declines in demand for coal plants, and we've seen declines over the years. I think it's turning around, but declines in demand for nuclear plants, which that ends up causing problems in terms of expertise to build the things, as well as supply chain issues. So basically, my question is, are we seeing declines in demand for natural gas plants such as these?
No, quite the opposite. It's a very active and robust industry.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Thomas. Any further commissioner questions?
Chair Powers.
Commissioner Williams?
Thank you very much. Good to have you here, and I'm looking forward to what I'm going to learn from each of you. And I'll start with thanks to the whole team for Exhibit A. I learned by looking at maps because that's my background, and so it's not a map, it's an aerial photograph. But between that and the drone footage, to see it in 3D was really helpful to me. If you could see my Exhibit A, you'll see all the things that I've written on it to try to really understand this, so thank you. Mr. Dills, on page 6 of your testimony, and you don't need to go there particularly, and I even heard it in the demonstrative video, you talk about the 50% more energy, which I totally understand. But the end of that sentence says, supporting the increased demand of the combined system. Can you illuminate that part for me?
The combined system is just our grid in Santee Cooper's balancing area. So it's all of our resources pulled together through our transmission system, and we're tied to Central through that same.
So you're just saying based on the load demand?
Yes, ma'am.
Got it. Mr. Lynch. Thank you for the update from yesterday. And I noted that you talked about the MPDES permit for wastewater. And is there an update there?
No, we have submitted that. They unfortunately had some turnover in that water area, so they had a new permit writer just recently assigned to it. So that we're working through that with DES actively.
Okay.
To obtain
Well,
that permit.
in looking at that photograph of the site and seeing the runoff location, is it anticipated that that's going to support the new development, or is it anticipated that you'll need more runoff capacity?
No.
Or is that not even the question?
No, all of the original flows were originally anticipated in the original MPDS permit.
Okay.
So all of that was conceptualized in our permit as it exists. So we will see no additional increases in flows or anything above what our current MPDS permit has. So it's just merely updating it for the additional equipment, the cooling tower that we'll see, and some of those flows, and an internal outfall for that cooling tower. So that's what the modification will entail. But the flows were originally conceptualized.
Thank you. Mr. Iden, okay. The proposed design for, and this could be for Mr. Dills too, for 2A and 2B, are they identical to what is in place for 1A and 1B?
It's very close, yes.
Okay. And are they equipped with the current, is the proposed, and the question is for either of you. Equipped with the best available technology for controlling environmental emissions?
The equipment is being assembled to be consistent with the permit requirements.
Are they the same as what existed in the past, or is that what's very close?
Okay. It is the way we comply with the air permit side. I'm assuming you're talking mainly about the air permit. It's done with combustion controls. It's called dry low NOx combustion. And so that's done in the actual controls of the combustion. So they change the way the flame burns in the combustion chamber to minimize NOx is the big thing they're looking out for. So they're trying to balance NOx and CO. High NOx means low CO, high CO means low NOx. And so you don't want either one of them out of whack. And so we have limitations on both of those things. And currently, 2A and 2B are controlled to 9 parts per million NOx. I don't recall the CO number that we have to live with, but and so none of that's being changed. The way the gas is being burned, there's no new things going in. So we are complying with our existing permit to maintain that number.
And I gather, given the permit that you got yesterday, particulate matter isn't an issue.
We do have it
was evaluated, it was modeled, and we're below that threshold.
Mr. Iden, were power purchases a consideration in looking at near-term needs?
No, Sergeant Lundy did not look at power purchases. There may be others present here today that can speak to that better, but our business case did not consider that.
Okay. Anybody else want to answer it?
Yeah, that's probably better for Mr. Settle coming up.
Okay. Thank you. And with regard to solar, were you looking at Santee Cooper ownership or third-party ownership?
For the business case?
Right.
For the business case, it's based on Santee Cooper ownership.
Okay. Thank you. No further questions. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams. Any redirect?
No redirect.
Thank you, Mr. Gissendanner. We are going to take our morning break now. It's a little after 11:30. If we could all be back about 11:45, we're in recess. We are back on the record on docket number 2024-264E. All commissioners are present in the hearing room. Santee Cooper will be calling their next witnesses.
Thank you, Chair Powers. Santee Cooper calls Clay Settle and Chris Wagner to the stand.
Mr. Wagner.
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
If you'll raise your right hand, do you solemnly affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And Mr. Settle, do you solemnly affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Mr. Settle, I'll start with you. Please state your name for the record.
Clay Settle,
And by whom are you employed and in what capacity?
Santee Cooper as a manager of resource planning.
Have you prepared or caused to be prepared under your supervision corrected direct testimony of 34 pages that was previously filed with the Commission on September 18th, 2024 in this docket?
Yes.
Do you have any changes or additions to your pre-filed corrected direct testimony?
Yes, I have 3 corrections. On page 17, line 1, and H-class CT should be stricken, and the word other should be stricken. The corrected lines 1 to 2 on page 17 should read, resources NGCC limited to 40% capacity factor CF, and CTs limited to 20% capacity factor. On page 27, lines 5 and 9 should say GHG case rather than reference case. And on page 30, line 12, the number 350 should read 450.
Subject to those corrections, if I asked you the same questions here today, would your answers be the same?
Yes.
Chair Powers, at this time, I move that the pre-filed corrected direct testimony of Mr. Settle as amended from the stand be admitted into the record as if given orally from the stand.
The pre-filed direct testimony as corrected of Mr. Settle will be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand.
Thank you. Mr. Settle, have you prepared a summary of your corrected direct testimony?
Yes.
Would you please share that at this time?
Yes. Good morning, Chair Powers and the Commission. In my direct testimony, I discussed the planning processes that led to the identification of the conversion of the units 2A and 2B at the Rainey Generating Station to combined cycle operation as an option to satisfy an energy and capacity need identified in the most recent load forecast. Additionally, I addressed the methodology, assumptions, and analysis used to demonstrate that the Rainey combined cycle is a cost-effective means for fulfilling the identified need and provides less ratepayer risk while maintaining safe and reliable electric service than other feasibly available long-term power supply alternatives, energy efficiency measures, demand-side management, and renewable energy resource generation. Finally, I explained the need for the Rainey combined cycle conversion and demonstrate that the project serves the interest and system economy and reliability. Santee Cooper has 2 primary planning processes: the generation expansion planning process under the coordination agreement with Central and its integrated resource planning pursuant to South Carolina law, where it identifies changes in load, whether growth or retraction. In order number 2024-171, the Commission orders Santee Cooper to consider other approaches to load forecasting and resource portfolio analysis to plan for future industrial load growth due to economic development. Santee Cooper worked closely with Central and other stakeholders to develop a methodology to evaluate future economic development loads and incorporate this future load into its forecast. Through a stochastic analysis, Santee Cooper was able to develop an expected outcome of potential new load over time that is not dependent on any single customer's decision to receive service from Santee Cooper or Central. The result of this stochastic analysis were incorporated into the 2024 system load forecast, which the Joint Planning Committee for Santee Cooper and Central approved in May 2024. The 2024 system load forecast projects approximately 1,000 megawatt increase in system demand by 2030 from that which was projected in Santee Cooper's 2023 IRP. Based on this load forecast, a need for additional capacity and energy was identified starting in the 2027 winter season, December 2026 through February 2027, with the need for additional capacity ultimately increasing to approximately 2,150 megawatts by 2031 upon the retirement of Winnie Generating Station. Following the development of the 2024 system load forecast, Santee Cooper and Central then developed the 2024 generation expansion plan in addition to other generation options. The 2024 generation expansion plan evaluated the Rainey combined cycle conversion as a proposed shared resource under the coordination agreement and as an economic option to fulfill a portion of the capacity and energy needs identified in the 2024 system load forecast. The results of the 2024 generation expansion plan indicated that to meet the load and growth of the combined system is expected to experience beginning in 2026, a combination of off-system purchases, battery storage, natural gas capacity, and renewable energy are all needed. The modeling selected the Rainey combined cycle conversion as one component of the most cost-effective portfolio to meet the system's capacity and energy needs. The modeling concluded that the Rainey combined cycle conversion resulted in approximately $369 million in savings under the reference case versus other resource options. The modeling also indicated that fulfilling the capacity need with resources that, in the near term, can be mobilized quickly, such as battery energy storage systems, result in higher costs, and that absent the Rainey combined cycle conversion, an additional combined cycle resource is needed in 2031. As such, Santee Cooper concluded that the Rainey combined cycle conversion is the best option at this time. Importantly, the key conclusions of the 2024 generation expansion plan, which was unanimously approved by the Joint Planning Committee in early August 2024, are consistent with the 2023 IRP. However, due to the timing of load growth identified in the 2024 system load forecast, battery energy system storage, natural gas combined cycle, and combustion turbine capacity are now needed earlier to meet load growth. As such, the Rainey combined cycle conversion provides a unique opportunity where Santee Cooper can add natural gas combined cycle capacity and energy to the combined system in a relatively short timeline and with low risk to meet load growth and energy requirements. In short, the Rainey combined cycle conversion is an important part of a diverse resource mix, which includes certain long-term power supply options identified in SC Code annotated Section 5833-180 and provide reliable, cost-effective capacity to satisfy the capacity needs that Santee Cooper identified following the 2024 system load forecast. This concludes my summary.
Thank you, Mr. Settle. And moving on to Mr. Wagner, could you please state your name for the record?
Chris Wagner,
By whom are you employed and in what capacity?
Santee Cooper, Director of Transmission Planning.
Have you prepared or caused to be prepared under your supervision direct testimony of 12 pages that was previously filed with the Commission on September 16th, 2024 in this docket?
I have.
Do you have any changes or additions to your pre-filed direct testimony?
I have one update. At the time my direct testimony was submitted, Duke Energy Carolinas had not completed its affected system study. However, I'm pleased to report that Duke Energy has since notified Santee Cooper that the affected system study is complete and no transmission upgrades on the Duke Energy Carolina system are required as a result of the interconnection of the steam turbine generator and associated facilities at the Rainey generating station.
Subject to that update, if I asked you the same questions here today, would your answers be the same?
They would.
Chair Powers, at this time, I move that the pre-filed direct testimony of Mr. Wagner be admitted into the record as if given orally from the stand.
The pre-filed direct testimony of Mr. Wagner will be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand.
And Mr. Wagner, have you prepared or caused to be prepared under your supervision for exhibits that are labeled as Wagner Direct Exhibit 1, Corrected Wagner Direct Exhibit 2, Wagner Direct Exhibit 3, and Wagner Direct Exhibit 4 that were previously filed with the Commission as attachments to your pre-filed direct testimony in this docket?
Yes.
Do you have any changes or additions to your exhibits?
I do not.
Chair Powers, at this time, I move that the pre-filed exhibits of Mr. Wagner, labeled as Wagner Direct Exhibit 1, Corrected Wagner Direct Exhibit 2, Wagner Direct Exhibit 3, and Wagner Direct Exhibit 4, be admitted into the record as the next hearing composite exhibit.
The pre-filed exhibits of Mr. Wagner identified as Wagner Direct 1 through 4 with, I think you said a correction to number 1.
A correction to number 2.
Number 2.
Yes.
Shall be entered into, marked for identification, placed in the record as exhibit number 4.
Thank you. Mr. Wagner, have you prepared a summary of your direct testimony?
I have.
Would you please share that summary at this time?
Sure. Good morning, Chair Powers, members of the Commission. In my direct testimony, I explained that all output from the Rainey Generating Station, including the new steam turbine generator, will be delivered to load within the Santee Cooper balancing area, and that Santee Cooper's transmission planning studies identified no required transmission upgrades on the Santee Cooper system to interconnect the proposed steam turbine generator to the Santee Cooper electric transmission system. I also explained that Santee Cooper identified the Duke Energy Carolinas transmission system as a potentially affected system, or one that may be affected by the proposed interconnection, and that Santee Cooper entered into an agreement with Duke Energy to perform an affected system study to evaluate whether Duke Energy required transmission improvements to reliably interconnect the proposed steam turbine generator and associated facilities. At the time my direct testimony was submitted, that study was not complete. I'm pleased to report that Duke Energy has since notified Santee Cooper that the affected system study is complete and no transmission upgrades on the Duke Energy Carolina system are required as a result of the interconnection of the steam turbine generator and associated facilities at the Rainey Generating Station. Sufficient transmission capacity is available to receive power at the existing point of interconnection and deliver the additional capacity and energy provided by the addition of the steam turbine generator to Santee Cooper's customers. This concludes my summary.
Thanks, Mr. Wagner. Chair Powers, these witnesses are available for cross from ORS and questions from the Commission.
Thank you very much. Any questions from ORS?
No, sir, thank you.
Any commissioner questions? Commissioner Williams.
Thank you, Chair Powers. Good morning.
Morning.
Good to see you both again. My questions are all for Mr. Settle. I believe. We'll see how it all works out. But Mr. Settle, on page 9 of your testimony, you reference both 25 projects and you reference 21 projects. Would you explain again for me how that adjustment is made and how you is that at all based on time of estimated time of service?
Yes. So the load forecast team at Santee Cooper assembled a group of SMEs that essentially folks that would be talking to potential customers, distribution, transmission planning, economic development, Camp Hall team, origination, and coordinated with Central to identify what potential could be out there. And then to get down to the 21, those are, and this is an important part of the load forecast, those are actual customers that people are talking to. So that 21, that criteria was it had to be an actual potential project, and that's where the 21 comes from.
Okay. And are they located throughout both Central and Santee Cooper's?
Yes, that's correct.
And not focused in one particular area?
No, it's Central and Santee Cooper customers.
Okay.
That's correct.
And just for general understanding purposes, these are, ones with real potential. How do you analyze them as they become real service needs, or as they evaporate? And I realize you've done some of that in your testimony, but I find it helpful to hear your off-the-cuff answer.
Yeah, and actually it's that same page 9 talks about that, but just I'll talk at a high level. That's why we had the stochastic analysis for this load forecast. So in this load forecast for 2024, the load forecast team used the same methodology that they used in the 2023 IRP and typical for what we call the base load forecast. That's where we have the potential residential and commercial growth on Santee Cooper's system, and then the known customers that have signed or made commitments, historical energy usage or discussions with our existing industrials or what potential they may see. So that's what's called the base, and then Central provides their own base that's consistent with Santee Cooper's methodology, and those two become the combined base forecast. And then we had this piece of economic development growth that rightfully this commission ordered us to look at coming out of 2023 IRP. And so how do you do that? And, because we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Mm-hmm. So that's why we did the stochastic analysis. So you look at 3 components. You look at 1, what is the likelihood that someone will connect or will not connect? And that's just a yes or no. And then 2, what is the likelihood that the magnitude they're telling us they will have is accurate? And so, because a lot of times we can be told we're going to have X megawatts, or and then it ends up being lower once they're actually in service. And then the third was, what's the probability of the timing that they're telling us and their ramp schedule is accurate? So there's a delay in a sense of the project may start later. So using those three variables, the load forecast team created a stochastic model and that analyzed 50,000 potential outcomes of that load. So when you think about, what does that mean? They looked at 50,000 potential economic development load forecast realities that could happen. And then we ended up using the 50 percentile, which means kind of the median of that analysis is what went into the 2024 load forecast.
It jumps off the page a little bit more when you talk about it, so thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams. Any further commissioner questions? Any redirect?
No redirect.
Thank you, ma'am. You gentlemen may step down.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman Powers, at this time, that concludes Santee Cooper's case in chief.
Thank you very much. Office of Regulatory Staff.
Yes, sir. ORS will call Jeff Gordon and Donald Shane Hyatt to the stand as a panel.
Mr. Gordon, if you'll raise your right hand, do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And Mr. Hyatt, if you'll raise your right hand, do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Mr. Gordon, good morning. I'll start with you, or maybe good afternoon. Could you please state your name and occupation for the record?
My name is Jeffrey A. Gordon. I'm employed by the South Carolina Office of Regulatory Staff as a regulatory analyst in the Energy Planning and Emerging Technology Division.
And are you the same Jeffrey A. Gordon who pre-filed 7 pages of direct testimony in this case on November 12th, 2024?
I am.
Do you have any changes or corrections to your pre-filed direct testimony?
No, I do not.
If I were to ask you those same questions today that were posed in your direct testimony, would your answers be the same?
Yes.
Chair Powers, ORS asks that the pre-filed direct testimony of Jeffrey A. Gordon be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand.
The pre-filed direct testimony of Mr. Jeffrey Gordon will be entered into the record as if given orally from the stand.
Thank you. Mr. Gordon, did you prepare a summary of your direct testimony?
Yes, I did.
Would you please provide that at this time?
Good afternoon, Chair Powers and members of the Commission. My testimony provides the results of ORS's examination and review of Santee Cooper's application for a Certificate of Environmental Compatibility and Public Convenience and Necessity to convert Rainey Units 2A and 2B from combustion turbine to combined cycle operation. My review focused specifically on the company's stated need for the project and whether the project will serve the interests of system economy and reliability. Based on information provided by the company, ORS understands the project may serve the interests of system economy and reliability, and as addressed by ORS witness Hyatt, may result in minimal impact to the environment. ORS recommends the company file updates with the Commission and ORS on the construction of the project, completion of the project, and date of commercial operation as the project is completed. This concludes my summary.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon. Mr. Hyatt, I would turn to you now. Could you please state your name and occupation for the record?
My name is Donald Shane Hyatt. I'm employed by the South Carolina Office of Regulatory Staff as a project manager in the Energy Operations Division.
Thank you. Are you the same Donald Shane Hyatt that pre-filed 10 pages of direct testimony in this case on November 7th, 2024?
Yes, I am.
Do you have any changes or corrections to your pre-filed direct testimony?
No, I do not.
If I ask you those same questions today posed in your direct testimony, would your answers be the same?
Yes, they would.
I think I realized I just have a typo. I think it was November 12th, 2024, not November 7th. Did I get that date wrong? 7th, okay. All right. Pardon. Sorry, I also had a question again. If I ask you the same questions today posed in your direct testimony, would your answers be the same?
They would.
Chair Powers, ORS would ask that the pre-filed direct testimony of Donald Shane Hyatt be entered into the record, in this case as if given orally from the stand.
The pre-filed direct testimony of Mr. Hyatt will be entered in the record as if given orally from the stand with a correction of the date.
I believe that his date was correct. I think where my error was when I asked Mr. Gordon, I think I said the 12th, and that should have been the 7th. So if the record could reflect that, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hyatt, did you prepare a summary of your direct testimony?
Yes, I did.
Could you please present that now?
Sure. Good afternoon, Chair Powers, members of the Commission. My testimony provides the results of ORS's examination and review of Santee Cooper's application for a Certificate of Environmental Compatibility and Public Convenience and Necessity for the construction and operation of a steam turbine generator and associated facilities as part of the combined cycle conversion project. My review focused specifically on Santee Cooper's compliance with the Siting Act, the nature of the probable environmental impact of the project, whether the impact of the project upon the environment is justified, the reasonable assurances that the proposed project will conform to applicable state and local laws and regulations issued thereunder, and whether the public convenience and necessity requires the construction of the project. Based on the information provided by Santee Cooper, ORS understands the projects may result in minimal environmental impact and, as addressed by ORS witness Gordon, may serve the interest of the system economy and reliability. ORS recommends that Santee Cooper file updates with the Commission and ORS on the construction of the project, completion of the project, and date of commercial operation. This concludes my summary.
Thank you. Chair Powers, the members of the panel are available for cross-examination and commission questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions from Santee Cooper?
No questions from Santee Cooper.
All right. Commissioner questions. Commissioner Belser.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
Both of you have referenced the request that Santee Cooper file updates with the Commission and ORS. Tell me what you are asking for with regard to timing of updates.
Just updates on when the project actually gets underway, completed, and then when it becomes active.
Operational? Okay. Thank you. Let me ask you this. Have y'all discussed that with Santee Cooper? Those requests? If not, that's fine. If you don't know, that's fine. I don't know is a good answer.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Belser. Commissioner Caston.
Thank you. And if you said this in your summary, it's because I was reading something in the direct, so I apologize.
Okay.
But on, I think, page 8 of 10, you talk about as of the filing of my direct testimony, no other state agency has expressed concerns to ORS about the project. Have any since then?
No.
All righty. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Caston. Commissioner Vice Chair Williams.
Question for you, gentlemen. If the company were to run into any cost overruns or delays, would ORS be interested in hearing about those if they happened? I know you requested, you referenced updates with Commissioner Belzer regarding initiation and completion, but are there any other notifications that you anticipate that would be useful?
It's my understanding that the board meetings and information provided in the board meetings are public, and therefore we would be interested in watching those updates to the board when requests are made for increases if needed.
So, Mr. Hyatt, are you telling me that someone at ORS would be tracking the project through monitoring the board meetings?
Yes.
Okay. Who would that person be?
That's me.
That's you.
I'm the project manager for Santee Cooper. Yes.
Okay. So the buck stops with you there.
Yeah. Yes.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Vice Chair Williams. Commissioner Williams.
Thank you, Chair Powers. Good afternoon. One of the things that I noticed in the demonstrative video were how few residents were in the area. Is that a consideration that you all think about, and that might be a question for Witness Hyatt in evaluating impact?
Yes, when we're looking at the impact of the project overall, we take into consideration any people or land that would be affected and notifications to those people. But they're so few and far between that there was not any in this case.
And I noticed the conversation about noise levels and residents. So it's a non-issue, is what you're telling me?
Correct.
Okay. And then, Witness Gordon, in your testimony, you talk about the project will serve interest of system and reliability. And Witness Hyatt, you talk about it may serve. Can you both tell me why the differences in language and what that means to each of you?
Sure. I say may serve because Witness Gordon was reviewing the IRP and the need and necessity. So that wasn't part of my specific review, so I say may.
So you're relying on, you say may, dependent on Witness Gordon's testimony? Is that?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
And I say will serve because when following the IRP, there's a likelihood involved, and honestly, it was just a choice to use will instead of may.
Can you help me understand that better? Because to me, those are two different statements.
Well, you may have noticed in my summary, I use may. Generally speaking, at ORS, we don't like to use will.
Right.
And I probably should have used may in my testimony. And if I used will, it was not necessarily an error, but it was maybe not the best choice of wording. May is more acceptable there than will, but based on my review, I chose to use the word will.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. No further questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams. Any further commissioner questions? Commissioner Thomas.
Thank you, sir. So this morning we heard about a number of recent updates to permits and studies, and do those recent changes have any impact on ORS's view of the project?
No, because none of the permits got rejected, or it doesn't affect the review in this process.
Okay. And just at a high level, does ORS believe that Santee Cooper has demonstrated that the public convenience and necessity require the construction of this facility?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Thomas. Any redirect?
Just briefly, thank you. Mr. Gordon, could I turn you to page 7 of your testimony, please? Line 5.
Yes.
I believe you were speaking with Commissioner Carly Williams a little bit about a statement that the project will serve the interest of system economy. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And so could you just read that entire answer to me for lines 7 and 8, just for the record?
Based on the information provided by Santee Cooper, the project will serve the system interests of system economy and reliability.
Okay, and so whether or not will or may be a better operative word, either way, it's based upon the information that you've received and the various assumptions that Santee Cooper provided for the project. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. Mr. Hyatt, could I ask one question?
Yes.
Do you agree with Mr. Dill's testimony that by using this procedure and getting some use out of the heat, that this will be an improvement environmentally?
I agree that it will not be a further detriment because it is less emissions per megawatt hour.
All right, thank you very much. Anything further? All right, gentlemen, you may stand down.
Thank you.
Chair Powers, that concludes RS's case. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anything further from the company?
We have nothing further.
Anything further from anyone? All right. Thank you all for your participation, your interest in today's case. I wish everyone a happy, healthy, and productive 2025. We are adjourned.